I want to talk about brain brain plasticity. Excuse my pronunciation. We may be interrupted because I'm in a facility where Al was calling me every day. That's why I know what's going on in quite some detail. Well, once they found out and made connection with me, I brought this up before. I went to sleep one night and I woke up here, and this is a good place to put me because no, like if you're in an asylum with other crazy people, other people think you're crazy. It's a good place to hide someone. It's easy. Like suppose they take my car, it gets into a horrible car wreck, and you get a body, maybe some street person that's died, nobody cares about them, there's no traceability, and they're burned to a crisp in the car, and then I'm gone. And then nobody's looking for me because they had the funeral, they buried me. All my loved ones and my relatives, they felt very bad, but here I am, and I'm able to get a phone. I've got a phone. I'm able to get out on Wi-Fi, and I'm able to bring what I know back to you. Brain plasticity. Now, I think I told you last that Al and Erotica had fallen in love, and she became. Al was number 13, and Erotica's number 14. And then we have Frank and Elaine and Karen. Uh, and then there's 8 more that preceded the group that Al's with. They already went down to San Diego, and then there's another step past San Diego. Once the electrodes have grown into erotica's brain cells, and I'll tell you how they do that. Okay, you equip the implant with some folded, like micro, let's think spider web kind of filaments, but they're folded, so you can have a 6 or even 12 inch filament that's activated by the moisture in the brain, around the brain, because I think you know that the brain is actually floating in this moisture. And the background sounds that you may hear from time to time is from the roommate that's here, and they move people in and out of my room from time to time. Uh, so the moisture in the brain, around the brain, activates these folded filaments so that gradually, over a 2 week period, they unfold like an accordion. They're all squished up, and then when the moisture hits them, they unsquish. They're all chained together at a molecular level, and then they grow across the top of the brain like a spider web, and then they connect to the nerve cells at the top of the brain, and all those nerve cells they have a presence at the top of the brain, and then they grow like root trees down into the midst of the brain, and that's where the neurons of the nerve cells interchange information. So all you need to do is make some connection with the brain tissue surrounding the outside of the brain, and then once you've made that, then the connection can go down through the nerve cells into the synapses where the nanobots are implanted. Brain plasticity. Oh, but wait, before we go on for that, I think you may know, if you're watching the news, that the FDA has approved trials, not even clinical trials. They went ahead and gave advanced authorization to use a new drug to prevent Alzheimer's and dementia. There's so much Alzheimer's and dementia costing this nation so much in medical costs. The third leading cause of death, or associated with death, in the country, that the FDA is willing to give everybody any kind of authorization to do whatever. Okay, but look it up yourself. I'm not making this stuff up. Look up the recent authorization for an advanced drug that's just experimentally given the okay for the pharmaceutical firms, because all the other brain chemicals, the drugs, have not. They have a lot of drugs out there that are supposed to like eliminate the plaque buildup in the nerve cells or synapses, but they work intermittently. On some people they work well, on some people they don't work so well. And there's some doctors out there say, well, you got to take the individual patient in consideration. But brain plasticity is like, old people, they're recommended that they learn a language, play the piano, because that encourages the brain cells to reproduce or accommodate that. And you may know that somebody who's right-handed has an extra growth, an enlarged growth on the left hemisphere of the brain that's associated with right arm movement. So one of the practices is just like to switch from right-handedness to left-handedness, and then you promote the brain to build up in the other hemisphere. But the idea of plasticity is to use your brain like a muscle, uh, so that your need for it to have cells promotes more cell growth. That's not,
Oh.
but the other thing that you've heard is that Alzheimer's is associated with gut biome. You may know that your gut has bacteria in there and viruses that all work to convert the minerals in your food to substances that can be taken up by the bloodstream and delivered to the individual cells. And in an earlier episode, I talked about the nanobots that were implanted, that they not only increase the chemical reaction at the synapses, but they also increase the permeability at the cell membrane to allow more nourishment, nutrients to come in, and and more waste to be excluded from the cells, so that the nerve cells that are there functioning are healthier. And that means that not only do you do all these things or take any drugs or do any implants, but it's so important to eat the right foods. So along with the foods, exercise, not a big amount of exercise. We've talked about these excursions around LA. They're just that, so you get out in the sunlight, you get outdoors, uh, you get some amount of exercise, and then they're eating at restaurants. Uh, there's a whole nutritional component to this remedy. So there's a nutritional component, there's an exercise component, there's a rest component. And in rest, you have to make sure that you're not having sleep apnea. That is, that you've got a good blood oxygenation level, because that's important for nerve cell, brain health as well. And then the other thing about plasticity is that you need a social interaction. That it's one thing to have experiences, but if you have experiences with someone else, that gives whatever you're accumulating as a memory an emotional content, and that turns out to be very important. That when you're expanding the brain, like we're proposing, that not only do you reinvigorate the health of the nerve cells, but you start bringing about an immense amount of new sensory information coming into the brain. Because where we're going to end up in San Diego is that the brain's bandwidth capacity will start to be elevated to that, like a computer, so that now I can not only expand my sensory input, but I can link up with other people in this clinical trials group and have a telepathic exchange with others, much like the self-driving cars. If a self-driving car runs into something and has a learning experience in machine language, it shares that with uh, all the other self-driving cars. So this group of people, if one learns something, when they get down to San Diego and have expanded bandwidth, and whatever one person in the group learns, all the other people in that group will also learn. Uh, Adrotica becomes the 14th, so there are 14 and 6, there's 8 more to go, another group of 8. First group of 8, then the group of 8 that I'm talking about, and then another group of 8, passing through with not only the nanobot implantation, but also the gaining of experiences that are also associated with emotional experiences. And then at the same, so it's a group experience, and so there's a group social dynamics. So behind the scenes, there is a large crew of people with varying specialties that are overseeing this group of people engaged in the clinical trials. Uh, Thank you.